everybody. So we will start in just a minute here. We'll just wait for everybody to trickle in these first few minutes. So thank you for being here and welcome. I think we're good to get going here. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight. These are challenging days, and we're all carrying extra burdens on our energies and time. So thank you for prioritizing this critical justice work and for showing up here tonight ready to listen, to learn, and to act. And even though we can't see your faces, we see you. And we know you're here, and we're grateful to have you with us. I'm Katie Klein, Northern Minnesota Regional Organizer for MUUSJA. That's the Minnesota Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Alliance, an organization that works throughout Minnesota and the surrounding region in partnership with all those seeking to bend the arc of the universe towards justice. Tonight's program would not have been possible without a lot of organizations and people coming together. Thank you to UUSC, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, for your partnership and for the generous grant which funds this work. Thank you also to the UU Ministry for Earth, the Unitarian Universalist Association, the Unitarian Universalist College of Social Justice, and Side with Love for hosting and getting the word out about this workshop as part of the Harvest the Power Convergence. And of course, thanks most of all goes out to our presenters and the organizations and communities they represent. To each of you, thank you for the work you do every day and for carving out time in your very busy schedules to be with us tonight. You have our deepest gratitude. Tonight's program is the first in a series of workshops designed to prepare us to join and support Indigenous-led climate justice work. Offerings in the weeks ahead will go deeper into this work as it relates to Line 3 resistance, focusing on such topics as decolonization, leveraging your voice and privilege, legal and legislative advocacy, nonviolent direct action, and understanding winter safety and the cultural context of Northern Minnesota. For the latest on these workshops, please visit MUUSJA.org. That's MUUSJA.org. I'll drop the link in the chat. There's a contact us section on the main page, and we'll add you to our mailing list. The MUUSJA Facebook page is also a great resource for the latest opportunities for involvement. As we move through our program tonight, we'll use the chat box to drop links or information mentioned by our presenters. We also encourage you to add your voice to the conversation by offering up resources, connections, questions, or ideas to the chat or Facebook comments. And we'll be sure to save these chats and make them available to you through a follow-up email. Lastly, if you have any technical difficulties during this program, we have an amazing tech team standing by. Allie, Elizabeth, and Heather, if you all want to just give a little wave, they're on hand to support any technical needs or questions you may have. So I think that's it from my end. I will go ahead and turn things over to Anna Maria to get us started.
Hi, everyone. I am Anna Maria De La Rosa. I am a senior grassroots organizer at UUSC. And I just wanted to say thank you all for answering the call to be here and to show up and to being prepared to care. My guess is that if you're on this call, you already care. And so really this is a prepared to know and prepared to act. And so thank you for showing up. I just want to take a couple of minutes to center us in a We Are Land acknowledgement. And so I'm going to ask you all If you would like to close your eyes, you can close your eyes or you can lower your gaze. And if you feel called to place your hands over your heart. And I'm going to invite us to take a moment to center ourselves in a land acknowledgement, not as a function of ownership or reclamation, not as an empty exercise with no accountability, but rather as a continuation of our calling as stewards. Let us thank the Indigenous and Native caretakers of the land that you are on and from. If you know their names, speak them softly to yourself in this moment. And if you do not, commit to learning them. In this moment, with your hand over your heart, commit to personally taking whatever steps are necessary towards land reparations, to giving the land back. To our Native brothers and sisters, we say, you are still here and we will not erase you. Let us also thank the African hands and bodies that have toiled the land that you are on, a role forced on them originally through enslavement. Thank them for the seeds that they brought over hidden and braided in their hair, the seeds that still sustain us. Let us give gratitude for the farming and stewarding wisdom that we have inherited and continue to learn and eat from. This place that carries their blood and their sweat and their tears, these two tell the story of place. In this moment, with your hand over your heart, commit to personally taking whatever steps are necessary towards reparations. Let us honor their memory in humble gratitude. And lastly, keeping your hand on your heart, let's take a moment to acknowledge that we too are land. You are the continuation of the story of place. Thank your body for the ways that it holds your landscapes. Interrupt the belief that there is a separation between you and nature. You are merely an extension. You are land personified. To be stewards of the land includes protecting your heart as fiercely as you would the redwoods, a beehive, the ocean. To admit that we are land means that we commit to tending to each other as well. In this moment, with your hand over your heart, commit to personally taking whatever steps are necessary towards tenderly tending yourself and each other. Hahom Hashe.
Karen is lighting candles and shit. Weird bitch. Now I gotta smug for me.
We light this chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals. And this is from Rebecca Savage. It is our great honor from MUUSJA and our partners to introduce Winona LaDuke, who hardly needs any introduction, but we will trust to introduce herself as she sees best in this space. And we are so thrilled to have her and other honored leaders here to talk about how we can move boldly toward our highest ideals.
Hanin Nindawe Maganaduk. Hello, my relatives. So honored to be with you. I see my sisters out there. And many of you, just grateful to be with you here tonight. I'm here on the White Earth Reservation at our office at Aking, that means the land to which the people belong. That's what we're talking about, the land to which the people belong. So as I figure out how to tell you this story, let us say that a long time ago, our prophets told us that things would be changing, and they told us about times that would come, and they told us that we would botch up, and no society has monopoly on botching things up. Talked about people would come and some be good and not good. Talked about things would disappear. We didn't have a word for anthropologist, but I guess they were talking about that, all that stuff to museums. Then talked about these people that would be born called the Ashki and Anishinaabe. And those people would remember who they were. They'd remember their songs. They'd go back and bring their old ones home from museums. Maybe these new people that were restoring themselves, breathing their life back into who they were. And then they said those people would be faced with the choice between two paths. One path, they said, would be well-worn, but it would be scorched. The other path, they said, would not be well-worn and it would be green. And that would be our choice upon which path to embark. That is where we are. I'm an economist by training, and I call this late stage Wendigo economics. That's when you have dug up every rock you could easily find, and you have sucked the oil out of everything, and you're crushing things to make new oil and blowing up the bedrock of Mother Earth, and kind of a bad addiction. So at this moment in time, you have this final period in a pandemic, I always like what Aaron Dottie Roy refers to as a pandemic. He talks about pandemics as a portal between two worlds. So here we are in this moment where everything has changed around us, and the end of the fossil fuel economy. That's where we are. Minus $38 a barrel. At what point did you get taught that in your economics class? That's the end of the party. But having to party till the end, Canada is intent upon trying to sell some fossil fuel pipelines. And so the third largest corporation in Canada is named Enbridge, biggest pipeline company in the world. And they got some real old pipelines that they have run through 50 years of northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, giving us the Kalamazoo spill and giving us also the single largest oil spill in US history on the mainland, which was the Grand Rapids spill. They have some old pipes. The whole infrastructure of this country is old. Got a D in infrastructure, but those pipes are dangerous. They are a dangerous bunch of pipes. And so Enbridge is trying to figure out how to squeeze the last bit of the fossil fuel era out. And they, a few years ago, like 4 years ago, there was actually 5 separate tar sands pipelines proposed. There was a Enbridge one called Northern Gateway, that was to the Pacific coast. That was lost at the National Energy Board. There was one called Energy East. That was to go to Montreal. That didn't ever happen. Then there's 3 left. One's called Trans Mountain. That's, I actually refer to that as Trudeau West. That's the one that the Premier Trudeau bought so that he could get some tar sands to the Chinese markets. And then there's KXL, and there's Line 3. And it's the race to who can be the last tar sands pipeline at the end of the fossil fuel era. And it really makes no sense because everybody else knows that the writing on the wall has been well written. Exxon's no longer even in the S&P. These guys are falling out. At the top is Google, Amazon. Fossil fuel companies are not in charge. But what you have is a situation of a lack of vision in political leaders. And what you have is people who have stood up. So for 7 years, the Ojibways, Minnesota, the citizens groups have stood against these pipeline projects by Enbridge. First one was the Sandpiper. It was a 3-year battle, 2013 to 2016. And a lot of the people on this call were on that one from the get-go. And then Line 3. And so we've been at this basically 7 years, trying to make the darn system work. Tried everything. Didn't skip a beat. Went to every regulatory hearing. Went to, every time they said jump, we said how high. Citizens groups, tribes, 3 tribes, started with 5 tribes, but Enbridge tried to peel off a couple tribes, make it look as if some of the Indian people really liked it, when, you know, really, no Indian tribe wants a fossil fuel pipeline. You know, you got real old lines running through all these reservations. And Leech Lake said, we're done. And that's why we have this new route battle, because Enbridge has to go all the way around Leech Lake. So nobody wants these pipelines. 68,000 people testified against these pipelines. Everybody intervened. Thousands of people turned out in the streets. You know, when I was meeting with the governor's office, they was like, you know, what's going to happen? I said, I'm not your problem. I said, the librarians locked down on the pipeline. That was those guys called the valve turners. I said, and the Catholics, the Catholic workers, they locked down on the pipeline. Nobody likes this pipeline. You know, but they could not do the right thing in the state of Minnesota. They're so focused on the last stages of Wendigo capitalism. They got to get the last mines in, dig the last rocks out, you know, and just squeeze the last gas through, last fossil fuels, tar sands, 50 new coal-fired power plants. That's what this line is worth, the equivalent of 50 new coal-fired power plants. And Enbridge lost 2 pipelines already. They didn't get the Northern Gateway and they didn't get Sandpiper. So this is they're like, they gotta have it. And so we've been trying, you know, and so at this legal point, the state of Minnesota has approved the permits. Minnesota Pollution Control Agency approved the water crossing permits last week. And a week later, today, of course, the Trump administration approved the Army Corps permits. People want to know where this is at. Well, what happened is that the process was wrong. The Minnesota Public Utilities Commission not only does not know legally or jurisdictionally what it does, but it also made a decision which was profoundly wrong. And in that process, we appealed. So did the state of Minnesota. So did the state of Minnesota. Minnesota Department of Commerce appealed the issuance of what's called a certificate of need and the issuance of a route permit. And so in the Minnesota Court of Appeals with a hearing this spring is a case to overturn all of the permits which have been issued. And that case includes the state of Minnesota and 2 tribes, my tribe and Red Lake, as well as Honor the Earth, some other organizations. So the point is that this pipeline should never have been approved. And the point is that this pipeline should definitely not, will, you know, we could win in the court, and that is where we should win. You know, so what we're trying to do is to get to that hearing. In the meantime, Enbridge is unrolling holy hell in northern Minnesota, and I'm going to let my colleagues talk about that. But what I want to say is that it's really this moment in time, because last week on the 12th, Governor Walz approved Line 3, approved the permits for Line 3 through the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. The next day, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan denied the easement to Enbridge underneath the Straits of Mackinac. She said 50 years old pipeline, 2 lines, too much risk. Enbridge is not a safe corporation, and so she withdrew the easements to Enbridge the day after Governor Walz approved them. And I thought about it. I did, and with the help of the Attorney General, as someone has pointed out, my point is that she used something called the public trust doctrine, where she said it is the responsibility of the state to protect the interests of the public and the interests of the Great Lakes. Now, Governor Walz did not use the public trust doctrine. And so, you know, I'm here to ask you to help me to uphold the public trust. That's what I'm doing. So anyway, pass on to my sisters and, you know, to talk about where we are on the line. But 7 years in, we have tried everything. We would like the system to work. And last thing I want to say is that the end of fossil fuels is here. The fact is that whether it is electric cars or the 10% reduction in fossil fuels we have as a result of COVID, we're already walking through the doorway to the new world. Enbridge ain't coming unless they change their way. Miigwech. Am I passing it to someone that I say, or is someone passing for me?
Am I passing to myself?
Yeah.
There she is. Tara, please welcome Tara Houska from the front line.
Oh my God. Thank you for that, Winona. And thank you for the time and the space. And I'm glad to be here with all of you, seeing all your lovely faces. Good to see you guys sometimes on other conditions and other situations, others I don't know. I am Tara Houska. I'm Bear Clan from Couchiching First Nation. And yeah, it's just good to be on a call with a bunch of badass folks at the end of a long day. Let's see, the line 3 fight. My God, it just keeps going and going, huh, guys? Like 7 years, like Winona said. I guess a little background of how maybe I got involved in all that stuff, where we're at. I'm born and raised outside of International Falls, Minnesota, in a little town called Rainier. If anyone's ever been there. It's around the Canadian border. It's where my res is at. It's across the lake in so-called Canada. And spent a lot of time out in DC working on policy and federal legislation and all that, representing tribes all over the country, and then went out to Standing Rock, North Dakota, because they had taken the money from the Sandpiper Project, Enbridge, and put it towards Dakota Access Pipeline. So basically, we're not going to screw you guys over, but we're going to screw over your relatives next door. And that's how I ended up out there. Started working with Winona around that time, and I just got done working with Bernie Sanders and saw this shift happening. And I think it's still, you know, very much bubbling to the surface, even in the pandemic, even with all the madness and craziness around us, which is something's got to give, something's got to change. You know, this economy, this system isn't treating folks with empathy, respect, kindness, equity, justice in so many different aspects of society. You know, it's not just the pipeline, it's so many other iterations of what a society that's hell-bent on extracting for the few at the expense of the many, what it really results in. It results in, you know, families being torn apart by some fossil fuel company. We've got our neighbors all over northern Minnesota saying Minnesotans for line 3 in their yard signs, like that they're actually, it's somehow a yard sign to say I support a fossil fuel pipeline. You know, that's how divisive and invasive this corruption in our governance systems really is, and in this deep entrenchment of, I don't think this is capitalism. I think this is oligarchy. You know, this is not really about free market or fair trade or any of that. It's really about the interests of a company like Enbridge, that is the largest fossil fuel infrastructure company in North America. You know, on the ground, I did a live stream today for the first time in, like, I don't even know how many years. I'm not really a live streamer. I think that's kind of awkward and weird. It feels like an 8-minute selfie or something. Just like want to turn it away from myself. But yeah, I did a live stream today right next to one of the work sites that's popped up about 10 minutes away from our camp. It filled to the brim with bulldozers and excavators, men all working their butts off, getting ready to bulldoze through the wetlands and beautiful watersheds of northern Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes and our homeland, Anishinaabe King. I'm the founder of GNU Collective. It's a group led by women and Two-Spirit youth, largely. It's those, I like to think it's those Oshki people Winona was talking about. You know, in the time of that 7th fire, they're supposed to be these new people that wake up and they remind us the people that have fallen asleep about who we are as people. And I see that happening, whether it's the youth that have shown up on the front lines of Line 3, or the youth that led the struggle at Dakota Access, or the youth that were out carrying and leading the fight and the uprising when George Floyd was murdered in the streets of Minneapolis. It really is our youth that are carrying us and reminding us of our own humanity and looking with such clear direction and without compromise. I mean, I still don't understand how we can be in a situation where water is political. Water is life. It is not political in any way, shape, or form. It exists, and it's our duty to take care of it, take care of her, that living being that flows through every single one of our bodies that walks this earth. I mean, it's really upsetting and hard to see like the same iterations of and we've seen in Missouri and St. Louis, and we've seen in Baltimore, and in all these different places where people have finally reached the point where they're saying no more, enough. There's a tank parked outside of the Park Rapids County Courthouse. There's, people in Duluth buying thousands and thousands of dollars worth of riot gear. Drones, our camp is located. There are drones flying over Winona's house. There are drones following us around. We're riding around in our vehicles. We're getting followed and surveilled heavily, and they're trying to frighten us, and they're trying to make us feel like they're watching our every move, but we're watching them too. And we're standing with the strength of truth. We're standing with the truth on our side, and that's what's really frightening to them. That's what I saw in North Dakota when it was lines of armed police officers and private security with attacks and water cannons and everything. Grass, that's what it means when people are willing to give something more than themselves. It frightens those who are being commanded and told what to do, which is to defend the interests of big oil over the interests of us, the people. I think it's time for, if you're not already involved, to get involved. And if you are involved, it's time to be with the land. And it's been time to be with the land. We have to reconnect to who we are, hold the footsteps of our ancestors and the promise of a new generation. I mean, it's headwaters of the Mississippi River, right? Shore of Lake Superior. These are real places that hold our futures and hold our children's hearts. So please get involved if you're not, and follow the fight at Honor the Earth, follow the fight at GNU Collective, follow the fight at Get You Give Me Scouts, at Rise Coalition, at all these different places and spaces and faces of people who have been stepping up for our mother and trying to hold that voice and give that space to her. So miigwech, meet you for the time.
Thank you so much, Tara. Over to Rita Chamblin.
Hi, I'm Rita Chamblin. I live in northern Minnesota, just outside of Bemidji. I'm a Unitarian Universalist lay leader, and I also serve as the liaison here in Bemidji for Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, which is an interfaith community co-creating a just and sustainable world. I'm glad that so many of our Unitarian Universalist congregations are engaged in the work of dismantling white supremacy, because even though we're still in the midst of that work, it means that we can show up today with a stronger grounding in the truths about the history of colonization and white supremacy. Truths about our own faith tradition and our country, and how that history continues to operate all around us and in us in the present moment. If you haven't yet seen the opening ceremony of this Justice Convergence last Thursday, and Reverend Susan Frederick Gray's open message in last Friday's worship service, please find time to watch them. In those sessions, I heard the hollowness and lies of old stories, and I heard some heartfelt offerings of truths in what to me were new stories. And in our living tradition, we bring a strong willingness to break from past errors, acknowledging when the myths that we've been taught are found to be inaccurate and harmful. We've done it before. We're not locked into those old myths. And we know in our faith tradition that we can chart new paths. So these new stories that we're learning, hard and painful though they are, can be a strong foundation as we build accountable relationships with our Indigenous neighbors, leading us to where we can write new stories with our experiences and actions to grow into the aspirations of Unitarian Universalism. Now, I was asked also to offer some actions you can take to help us stop line 3. First, we can use our voices. This is really critical right now. Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, along with all the other coalition members, we're asking for calls and emails to Minnesota state leaders for a stay of construction. A stay of construction to allow the appeals to the project to play out, and a stay of construction because bringing in out-of-state workers to northern Minnesota in the midst of a pandemic, well, that's just wrong. Imagine how powerful this can be when congregations can make their collective voices heard. Department of Commerce, Attorney General Keith Ellison, the governor and lieutenant governor, the Public Utilities Commission, the Minnesota Department of Health, all of those need to hear from us. In addition to using our voices, we can use our feet. Watch the Line is a coalition that was brought together and is committed to monitoring and documenting pipeline construction. I'm on the planning team for that. We observe legally and offer the observations and documentations of pipeline construction publicly, which means all of the coalition members have access to that. Katie's going to drop the link in the chat. This is a great way to get engaged and provide the coalition's legal and regulatory folks with crucial information. The third thing that we can do is use our resources. And Winona and Tara talked about this material support for the Indigenous-led organizations on the front line. I've seen in the chat some of those links come in. Please connect. And finally, using our bodies. And we'll be sure to communicate specific calls for nonviolent direct action in the future. And I believe that we will also have some training that we'll offer on that. So just imagine how we can work in solidarity and accountability with our Indigenous neighbors. We can choose now to act on our commitment to justice in ways that our religious forebears did not. And as we heard in the Chalice lighting, with radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. So the call today is to stand in solidarity with our Ojibwe neighbors against line 3. And I invite you to join us. Now we'll hear from Don Goodwin.
Oh, you're muted, Don.
Don, we cannot hear you. No.
should I jump in, or do we think that Dawn will be back in just a second?
Why don't you go ahead, Shania, and then we'll circle back to Dawn.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Shania Matson, and when Dawn comes on, maybe someone could chat her so she knows that she'll be up next. So I grew up in and am currently living in Palisade, Minnesota, which is a tiny little town in northern Minnesota, in northern Aiken County. And my family has been in Palisade for 6 generations on one side and 2 or 3 on the other side. And one of the things about my family, like a lot of settler families that came into the region, is that jobs and extraction have been our way of life, as our CD8 representative likes to say. And that one of the reasons that I am interested in and engaging in this work to stop Line 3 is that I think that those stories we tell about the places we live and about who we are really shape the possibilities for the future. And I'm interested, like others have shared tonight, in how we tell a different story and live a different story. How can we be truth tellers and be accountable to those difficult histories while at the same time doing the good work of making sure that that our children and our grandchildren and Native people and others have a healthy future, that other cultures can thrive, and that we can do the difficult work of repair, reparations and repair. These things are something that I'm interested in. So I'm gonna keep my remarks very brief. I'm not, many of the people who are speaking tonight have been in this fight a lot longer than I have. I first heard about Sandpiper before Line 3 from my grandmother, who's 90 years old, and she's still living in Palisade. And she is a rabble rouser, and she says a pain in the ass for companies like Enbridge. And I'm following in her footsteps in trying to raise concerns on the part of rural communities. Not everyone in rural communities want this pipeline, but people have been told that there's no other option. These are the jobs that we deserve, apparently. And I think that we need to start challenging that. This is not healthy. These relationships, Anna Maria said at the beginning, the fiction that we're separate from land. This is not true. What we do to the land, we do to ourselves. And this is an opportunity, a portal, like Winona said, a chance to do things differently. And so I'm working with people in and around Palisade and Aiken County, some of my family members who I know are on this call. I'm glad you guys could dial in to not only help support the Indigenous-led movements to stop Line 3, but also to build a better vision for the future so that we aren't back here in this spot with another project like Line 3 in just a couple years' time, which is what will happen unless we can envision and act out a better future. So calls to action, things that I'm thinking about. All of the folks who are sharing tonight are being very brave and stepping up and making themselves visible. Support them, make those calls that they've asked for, give support to the front lines, keep them in your thoughts and your prayers, and also talk to your family members about this issue. That's really, really important to do that work. Also, it's mentioned the COVID issue. So our rural healthcare systems right now are on the brink of collapse. I have a lot of family members who work in healthcare here in Aiken County. Rural hospitals are under-resourced. We have an older population here, and we're very vulnerable. And the COVID surge is serious. And it's not fair. I really think it's not fair to ask people to choose between the good jobs on an unnecessary pipeline and the jobs of taking care of each other, and also the importance of our public health. So call the governor, call the Minnesota Department of Health, and ask them to stop Line 3, or if you can't get on board with that message, there are people who aren't quite there yet, delay Line 3. Don't start construction in the middle of a pandemic. That's careless, and it's hypocritical. The governor has asked many small businesses to close. That's the right thing to do. Why should a large corporation that's not even based in the United States be given a pass? So do that. The other thing that I'm thinking a lot about as an artist and a writer, the storytelling, the public narratives around this work and around the places we live are really important. So get involved in telling better stories. And if you want to, come north. I'm up in Aiken County. I'm near the Line 3 route where it would cross the Mississippi River. And we're going to be doing a lot of work around storytelling, public art, finding ways to get together and do things with our hands and remember how powerful we are, how powerful our creativity is. So I would encourage you to reach out. I'll drop my email in the chat, actually, for those of you who want to get in touch and figure out how to get involved in those ways. And then my gratitude, Miigwech, thank you to everyone on this call. I know how busy you are, and it just means a lot that you would take the time to share with us. Don, I'm gonna pass it back to you. Hopefully we can hear you.
Bonjour, can y'all hear me? All right. Bonjour, kagage yashik, indigenous cause. Kawaba bikani kagan nunjuba. That's a mouthful. My name is Everlasting Wind, and my English name is Don Goodwin. I live over here in White Earth. I live next to Lower Rice Lake and the Wild Rice River. And right next to me is the preferred route, just, I would say, 8 miles as the crow flies from where I live is where the preferred route is. And it's actually right next to our reservation. And our reservation boundary is actually on the northeast corner. So they will be clipping our reservation according to the maps. And according to federal law, you can't change a reservation boundary. So as you look and research a little bit about Line 3, you'll notice how it's called disputed townships. There's 4 of them just kind of snipped off. So you'll see that. And that's where I live. I live about 20 miles out of Bagley, Minnesota. Bagley, Minnesota is Minnesotans for Line 3 country. So I'm going to take you a little bit back farther in history than Winona was talking about. Now I'm going to talk about a time the Anishinaabe people actually lived on the East Coast. And so Winona was talking about history and all these things that we were told. And at that time, our people were told to go west to where food grew out of the water. Some say grew on the water. And so that's what our people did. They went to where the food grew out of the water. They were told this because they said there was great danger coming. And that's why so many of them took heed and they did listen. Some did not listen. Some people just laughed about it, scoffed, they say. And they're the people that suffered the most. So the people that moved on, they moved westward. And some went above the Great Lakes in towards Canada, and some traveled below the Great Lakes and around. And so that is where we are. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, upper around the Great Lakes area is where the food grows out of the water. And that's why the Anishinaabe people are here today. And this is our homelands. This is where we were told this is the sacred food, is wild rice. So we will protect it with all that we have. It's who we are. We're connected spiritually to that wild rice, and culturally and historically to that wild rice and to these lands. And that's why we are here, and that's why we're protected. I'm actually part of the Wolf Clan, and that is my inherent responsibility is to protect the environment and the people. So there is a lot here. I can't turn away. I haven't been on the ground. I did go out to Standing Rock. I was able to go out one weekend, and it was a beautiful time. We had a hard time leaving, and but I learned about tar sands actually in 2009. So it's been a long time that I've been on board with all of this resistance against tar sand oil. It is a toxic oil that is highly carcinogenic. So I have done all that I could. I've stepped out of my comfort zone on many occasions. Like right now, this is out of my comfort zone. But I thank you all for coming and listening. I started out a community member, just concerned and showing up at all the public hearings. When I first started, there was resistance at Red Lake. There is actually a portion of land where the current line 3 runs through. So I was involved then. And because I knew what tar sands was, and I was going to help bring some attention to that, and helped out at the camps. And so it just kind of morphed. And then pretty soon we heard about the sandpiper, and then I got more involved. So I've just been trying to get involved and help out. Honor the Earth was the only people really around doing any kind of resistance. And so I did a lot of work with Winona, helping with feasts and trying to get the education to the people and get people to speak up. And so I've been doing that for all this time, helping out. And 2 years ago, after all the public hearings and whatnot, a group of friends came together and we created Rise Coalition. And so there's 4 women. It stands for Resilient Indigenous Sisters Engaging. So my friends, I want to give them a shout out right now. Nancy Bolio and Debbie Toppings and Ileana Marie. So I just want to give that shout out to them. They do a lot of work. We are side by side. We started traveling together. So this has been hard for us to, with the engaging, we engage with different levels of government from city to federal, and also engaging with organizations and other people to try to protect what's left of our natural environment. And also, like I said, I started out as just a community member. I was working as an adult educator for the last 10 years. And finally, I just had used up all my PTO, going to hearings and meetings and different things that we needed to. And I had to make a decision, and I knew things were going to heat up and I wasn't going to be able to give the attention to my work that I needed to. And I resigned. And then shortly after that, I became a representative of Indigenous Environmental Network. So I was fortunate in that way. They helped me continue to do the work that I do. So right now I'm kind of in transition because I was trusting in the system and trying to help our state agencies make the right decision. And one thing that really sticks out to me the most is how Enbridge likes to sugarcoat or mislead, especially in their ads. I won't even listen to any Bemidji or area radio because it's just chock full of misleading ads. So the first one is that this is a replacement line. We need to replace this old line that might burst and destroy the environment. And so we're going to feel like Enbridge is putting a gun to our head. So if we don't replace this line, well, what they don't say, so it's half truths, misleading is what I say. And what they don't say is that it's also a relocation, not just a replacement, it's a relocation. And another thing they say, oh, it's the most studied pipeline ever. Well, what they don't say is what that study says. And what that study says in the EIS, I'll read it by word. And this is actually Governor Walls's tweet, word for word. The EIS, every route would disproportionately and adversely affect Native people. So a lot of misleading and half-truths. Yes, it was a highly studied pipeline, but they don't tell you what's in that study. So people that do continue to support it, you did not read the study, you didn't come to the hearings, you did not hear the whole process. And what the PUC has ignored, there is no need for this oil. It's exported. And Mr. Trump recently said, we're the biggest exporter of oil. We want energy, we are going to be energy independent. So does that say that we need this oil? We need to spoil the lands of the people, put more CO2 in the air, equivalent to 50 coal mine or coal powered electric factories? Yeah, so yeah, we do not need this line. And then another on top of that, like everybody else said, now there's COVID. And to me, they're taking advantage of this time and risking many people, because many people would not be afraid of COVID. They're going to stand for their land. And a little bit more about history, about this land. This area, from the proposed route, most of it cuts through yet another portion of the 1855 treaty area. So if you don't know much about treaties, the good way for, I like to actually talk about this 1855 is that it's misunderstood that we got rights. And it's not true. We maintained our rights to hunt, fish, gather. And who is the people that were given the right was the settlers. They were given the right to be able to come and move into these lands, and that the Anishinaabe people would live together in peace. And so we have upheld our part of the agreement. We're living in peace, and we want to continue to live in peace. But corporations, our government, they've gone too far. They won't listen to us. Listen to how important it is to them, to others that are for this line. Oh, what's the big deal? It's just one line. Well, I say that back. What's the big deal? It's just one line. In my thought, this is my own thought, my own opinions, is that my people are hurting. My people have been hurting for generations. They've been traumatized. Right now, our people are suffering from drug addiction. My people are dying of overdoses. And my thought is my people are not going to be able to begin to heal until we're listened to. Please listen to us that want to protect the land. That's what state land is for the people to to enjoy that land, for the animals to live and roam and be healthy. State land is not for putting pipelines through. That's not the purpose of it. So thank you all for listening tonight. I kind of get going. The translation of my name is Everlasting Wind. So I'll leave that with you all. I live in the area, so I'm not too sure like how much I'm going to be like camping or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be out and when. Maybe it'll be next week. I don't know. But I'm going to continue to do all that I can to protect what we have left for the next 7 generations. Which.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dawn. And we will turn things over to Tasia at this time.
Uju, Tabiki Giza Skijikwe, Nindijnakas, Nagachi Winong, Indunjiba, Magizi Dodam. My name's Tasia Martino. I'm from the Fond du Lac Reservation, which is the community that will be most affected by this pipeline when infrastructure starts going up. I am Eagle Clan, and I'm very happy to be here today with all of you amazing people. I've just been like scrolling through the list of participants and like getting emotional at like all the amazing people I've met on this journey that I see who are here today.
The couch into a bed.
Okay, and yeah, a lot of what Dawn said is the reason why we do the work that we do here in Gitchigumi Scouts. We started our group in opposition of the Enbridge Line 3 pipeline, and I recognized at that time when there was only 6 of us here in Fond du Lac who were in open opposition that I could not stop a pipeline all by myself. And so what my goal has been with Gitchigumi Scouts has been to just put out community care and be there for those of us here within this community who are most at risk. When infrastructure such as Dakota Access Pipeline, KXL, and just tar sands in general go up, the statistics that we face as Indigenous people also increase by 22%. Growing up, I was taught that the statistics I faced as an Indigenous woman was 1 in 3. And that's the reason I put boots to the ground so diligently, is because I have 4 children. 3 of them are beautiful young Indigenous children. And so when these white trucks trespass across my ancestral lands, I watch these men as they drive through, and I watch their eyes trespassing the bodies of the children of this tribe. And I recognize that, you know, Fond du Lac our enacting government is in agreement with this pipeline, but I also recognize that that was a Sophie's choice, and they were forced into that agreement in order to protect the Sandy Lake Memorial. Decisions were made without the consent of the people. I am the first one to go to an RBC meeting along with Deborah Topping and yell at Kevin Dupas, so in no way am I making excuses for him. I'm just thinking about all the fond memories I have of like me and Deb just like yelling at people. Moving forward, I recognize that those issues are only going to increase. I'm involved with Indigenous anarchist-led search group that searches and patrols for missing murdered Indigenous women and relatives. And it's just an honor to support these families as a survivor going through and navigating this trauma with them. I recognize that with this pipeline going up, I'm going to be even more busy, because when this infrastructure goes up and you have all of these workers who are out of state and not from the area making such a large amount of money, that money is just a beacon of light for issues such as drug and sex trafficking. And we've seen those increases happen with just the integrity digs that they were doing alone. I want to remind people that regardless of the RBC's choice, Fond du Lac did not make this choice as a whole. There are still many of us who are raising children here, who are terrified, and who need people. My kids are just like freaking out over there because they know I'm like doing something. They're great. A lot of my activism, it wasn't born out of this like grandiose thought that I'm going to change the world. I'm going to stop climate change. I'm going to stop this pipeline. I'm out there risking arrest for our people because I'm afraid. I'm afraid every time I see an Enbridge truck drive past, and I ask myself which one of my girls, you know, because with 1 in 3 and having 3 children, this is the reality for me. And so I choose to put myself and my body on the line in opposition of this company, in opposition of the rape and destruction of Mother Earth, because, you know, what happens to our water happens to our women. A while back, I had a conversation with this really wise Arapaho friend of mine, and they told me that, like, the earth is like, the people are a reflection of the land, and what we do to the land happens to our people. And I see that happening here. And I just, yes, that's pumpkin. And
a fat Minecraft pumpkin.
I just want to urge people who are still on the fence and not sure of what to do and how they can plug in, that there is a multitude of ways that you can get involved in the fight. There are so many different ways to be in resistance of this pipeline and help uplift our voices and help those of us who are terrified and raising children here on the front lines. You can get involved with so many different levels. There's been like legislation against the pipeline. There's been like frontline Indigenous activism against the pipeline. And there's even people who are at home, unable to leave, who are just like helping uplift our voices by like sharing and drawing awareness on social media, having those conversations with your family, with Thanksgiving coming up. That's a wonderful time to sit down and have a conversation with those in your family about like the reality that Indigenous people have been facing for the past 500 years. And with Governor Walz approving these permits, you know, he continued that cycle of harm against Indigenous people here within Minnesota. There are so many ways that you can get involved, and I'm just urging everyone here today to have this conversation with someone who wasn't here, you know, and just urge them to put their best foot forward however they can. Miigwech for sharing this space and giving me a chance to speak.
Thank you so much, Tasia. We will now hear from Sharon.
Good evening. You know, there's been so much said, and I just have a couple of things, and that is in 1998, Bud Waywood, the chief of our lodge, he said, you know, to us, what will you do for the water? And so since that time, you know, we worked really hard to save Camp Colorado Spring in Minneapolis, and you know, and we brought the water from the 4 oceans to Lake Superior in 2011, and I led the walk from the south, from Gulfport, Mississippi to, you know, and then, you know, in 2013 we walked the Mississippi River, and many rivers since then. And you know, I always think about, you know, what was said to us, like, what will you do for the water? And you know, what he said to us was, what would happen if all of the women of the world said no more? Said to the cities, the counties, the corporations, the mining companies, we will not allow you to pollute our water anymore. And, you know, in the Ojibwe culture, and really, I think all cultures of the world, you know, it was always women who gathered the water. And because we are the life givers, and water is a life giver. And so that's why it's our responsibility to take care of the water. And you know, we thought testifying and going to the hearings and, you know, all of those things, that we would be able to stop this thing. And you know, it's a sad day that when Governor Walz, you know, said it's okay. And so even good people can make bad decisions. And when we do make a bad decision, you know, we need to point out to them what will happen. And so we all know that, and it's our job to get other people to understand what can happen, and reconnect with water. And that's what we do on the water walks, is we, you know, when we gather that water and we carry it every day until we get to where the water is going into the mouth of the river, or you know, when we carry it every day, and it's like I remember Josephine Mandown said to me long time ago, when we gather that water, you know, we actually orphaned it. And so now it's our job to get it where it's going. And so when you have that kind of relationship with water, it's really hard to think about somebody hurting that. And one of the things that Winona, I always hear her say, is like, you know, it's you know, she talks about like when her kids would make a mess, and then you tell them, you know, you can't go make another mess until you clean that one up. Well, with water, it's a heck of a lot easier to keep it clean than it is to try to clean it back up after it's been polluted. So, you know, the water walkers, you know, we gather every Sunday at the river, and although we've suspended it now for a few weeks, but, you know, the water walkers all think about what's happening at line 3, and some of them will be joining you. And, you know, Shania put out the call. We passed that letter around, and some of them will be joining you up there and on those front lines. You know, we wish to have clean water. We wish to have a life for our grandchildren's grandchildren. And you know, we're sort of, in some ways, we can see like the light at the end of the tunnel. Vaccinations for COVID, you know, we've had a change in administration, and we'll see what happens. But do we want to a return to normalcy? You know, normalcy wasn't that good for many of us. But what do we want to create? And this is part of that. It's about creating a society that where everybody is has worth, where everybody has enough, and you know, we grow enough food in right now to feed everybody in the world. There's enough space for everybody in the world, and that anybody is homeless it's a shame. So, do we want to create a better world? You know, we have kind of a radical resurgence among the Native population in Canada, the United States, and we're restoring our value system, and we're you know, want to create societies where everybody is welcome and accepted. And I think, you know, those of us who are queers, you know, we're the antidote to hetero patriarchy, and you know, taking back the land. That's the step in you know, this radical resurgence. So I think that's all I have to say. You know, we pray for the water. You know, we stand with you, and you know, without water, there can be no life, and so we have to take care of it. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for your remarks. We'll turn things over now to Liz.
Bonjour, Nindoy Magane Duk. Hello, all my relatives. Nitana Gamakwe Nindigenicas. My Indian name is Lady That Knows How to Sing. My English name is Liz Jaakola. Magizi Nindodame. I'm Eagle Clan. Nagajiwanong Nindonjaba, Bapushka Minitagum in Donjaba. I'm from Fond du Lac Reservation in Papashka Minitagum. It refers to an island in the river, on the St. Louis River, which is one of the borders of our reservation now. I currently live on the reservation. I'm also recently elected to the Cloquet City Council, which that river, St. Louis River, runs through the city of Cloquet. And I'm happy to be here to speak with this group, and I'm honored to be able to speak with this panel because these women have been carrying this load for a long time. We all have been carrying this load for a long time, but Winona and Tara and Sharon and Tasia and Dawn and I'm sure I'm going to forget somebody, but everyone who's doing this work has been, putting themselves out there. You heard Dawn talk about how she decided to resign from her job so she could do this work. I know Tara is a really fantastic lawyer, and she's doing this work to protect our water and our territories and our resources. And I'm so grateful for that work. And as I start to settle into, I haven't been officially swore in for my seat with the city council yet. I'm looking forward to that in January, and I'm starting to prepare my mind and thinking about, how do I do my best to represent everyone in the city of Cloquet? But I am a water walker. Thanks to the teachings of Sharon and Josephine Mandamin and all of the elders before them, especially the Anishinaabe Kwe, the women who carry the water, but all of our ancestors. And I need to then also acknowledge my Finnish American ancestry. My dad, his name is my last name, Jaakola. And the people who have come here to live here, and the Anishinaabe people, welcomed people to come and live here. And here it is 2020, and we are dealing with some pretty heavy, serious issues that we need to come together to resolve in a way that helps everyone. And I know that the people that are currently here recognize the sacredness of water. The people that are currently in this Zoom acknowledge and have lived this way a long time, acknowledging the sacredness of water. I know that we come from many different belief systems and backgrounds, but this is a commonality, this connectedness through water. Like when we breathe out, we're breathing out our water. And when we breathe in, I'm breathing in your water. And we're becoming very aware of this during this COVID time, because that's how the virus is traveling, right? We're reminded daily, hourly about this connectedness, this connectivity, what we share. Whether we want to or not, we are sharing always. And we need to be mindful of this. And so this is our reminder, relatives, that we have this sharing occurring, and we want everyone to be healthy, right? We wish the best on people. We say it all the time, and there's so many instances in which we can find this common ground. So I'm hoping, I'm praying, I'm encouraging everyone to find that place. The things that have been said already, reach out across that, that table, reach out across your Zoom meeting, reach out across, all of the places that people that need to hear and be reminded of our relatedness, and that this isn't just an Indigenous issue. This isn't just a burden for a certain handful of people to carry. It is how we work together to support our community at large. And that includes those people who are working on the pipeline. That includes those people that want to make decisions, like we need to build community there as well. And I know that the people who are doing this work and who have been doing this work have built community. We need to always encourage, pray and consider and, be mindful of, it's in all the teachings, the fundamental teachings of any, a belief system or religion says, to honor thy neighbor, to pray for those who, might be our enemy or on the other side, our opposition, the shadow. Like, we're always having to do that, be mindful. So, this is the work that we're doing. One of those things that we can do is go to the water, go to the river, like the water walk teachings Sharon spoke about. We can also sing. And so I've been asked to teach this water song. And this is a water song that has been shared around the globe now. I mean, in fact, it came from teachings of collected, shared teachings about water from a Dr. Masura Emoto, which, if you're not familiar with him, Google him. He was a brilliant man from Japan who studied our effects of our thoughts and our intentions on water. And he studied it through a science, that he measured what the snowflakes looked like, what the water drips, and proved that water has memory. And we know this in all the fundamental teachings. That's why we're always talking about it, singing about it, the water of life, right? The water is life. And so in that mode, in that thinking, he talked about making sure that we tell the water that we love it, that we respect it, that we honor the water, that we're grateful, that we thank the water. So in hearing those words, those teachings, Sharon's sister Doreen came up with the prayer. She wrote those on a piece of paper and drove with it with her grandson Mashkuntz. And they were driving, and he saw these words and he said, do you think the water would like to be sung to? Do you think the water would like to hear this in our traditional language, Anishinaabemowin? And so Doreen put Anishinaabemowin words to those thoughts, and the song became, at that moment then, because of the shared concern of this grandmother and her grandson, to share these ideas. And so this is that. You can find more information about this on motherearthwaterwalk.com, which was a website that Josephine Mandaman's water walks were documented on. She has passed on, and now the work is being carried on by many others, including Sharon on nibiwalk.org, I believe. You can find about Sharon's walks. So I don't know how to work fancy Zoom controls on my phone. So look what I did. I made an old school notebook. I hope it is reading forwards on your screen. Is it? Okay, great. So you can see we have water, we love you, we thank you, we respect you. And so here is in our language, ni bi gizagi igu, gijawenimigu, sorry. And so I'm going to sing it in Anishinaabemowin. And I will tell you, this has been translated into so many languages. After I sing it 4 times in Anishinaabemowin, because that's kind of what we do, we sing things 4 times, then I'm going to do 2 rounds in English so you can hear that, because I know maybe some people are challenged by Anishinaabemowin. But after hearing it, and you have this now recorded, you can practice it. Also, you can find it at motherearthwaterwalk.com. motherearthwaterwalk.com. Okay, I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to sing. You can sing in your register, sing along. The Zoom, I think you're muted, so we will not interfere with each other Zooming, I don't think. I'll talk a little bit at the end, right? Any range, any voice, all voices matter. All voices matter, and this is what we're doing, right? Nibe Gimme Gwechuenimigo Gijawe nimigo. Nebe kisageko gimigwechue nimigo gishawe nimigo nebe Kizageko Kimigwechue nimigo Gishawe nimigo Nebe Kizageko Kimigwechue nimigo Gishawe nimigo Water, we love you. Water, we thank you. Water, we respect you. One more time, if you haven't sung yet, here's your chance. Water, we love you. Water, we thank you. Water, we respect you. Miigwech, thank you. I know that there are so many ways in which we can do this work together. And this is one way that we can continue this work. There's so many songs out there, water songs across so many cultures. Let's do it. Let's do it in song. Let's do it in prayer. Let's build this circle. Miigwech Bizendawiyig, thank you all for listening to me. And thank you for having me on this panel.
Thank you so much, Liz. That was beautiful, and it's a joy and an honor to sing with all of you this evening. I'm going to open up space if any of our presenters have any final thoughts before we wrap up this evening. Any final thoughts or reflections?
I just want to, Miigwech, thank everyone and be so grateful to be here with my sisters and all these women. And I know there's a lot of men there too, but just a really beautiful, beautiful time. And, you know, in spring is coming, there'll be a new birth. You know, let us stand strong and be beautiful and make something new, make something good. And it's a pleasure and a privilege to stand with you all at this time in our lives and to sing with you.
Yeah, miigwech for the space. Miigwech to all of you. It's beautiful to hear a water song, close the evening out that way. And yeah, just reiterating, please get involved and find your way and find your way to share your gifts with the world. It's very, very needed to connect with each other. I think if this pandemic has shown us anything, it's that we need to be connected and what we really care about, which is each other. And yeah, miigwech. Lots of love to everybody.
I'd like to thank everybody too. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dawn. Go ahead.
I'd just like to thank everybody that showed up tonight to listen, and thank all those that will watch this live recording. I'd like to thank them too. Even though they're not here tonight. And I thank all these ladies here on this panel. And there's some that I know and some that I hope to get to know. Let's do what we do best. Work together to stop this terrible idea. Stop line 3. Or if we at least can pause for the pandemic. Miigwech.
I want to say thank you to everyone for being here tonight and holding space. And I'm just really humbled and honored to be part of such an amazing panel with so many strong, amazing Indigenous women. When Liz was singing and speaking, my children kept like rushing in to get a look at her because, you know, like they're like, it's auntie. And that's so important. It's like that familial connection that Indigenous people have with one another, and the importance of having representation. The other couple nights back, we were watching the news, and we seen Liz she made it. She's the elect for Cloquet City Council, and it was such a emotional thing for us to have that representation, and for my daughters to be like, hey, we know her, and to hear them be like, she looks like me. So like whatever it is you're choosing to do, just remember, like Liz and all these wonderful women here, to put your best foot forward, and remember that like as Indigenous people, we are made up of the prayers of thousands of our ancestors, and to just honor that in our everyday life. So again, thank you for everyone who was speaking, everyone who was part of the planning, and all of the amazing people here today who are watching this, sharing this. This was just a really beautiful space. So miigwech.
Well, miigwech to all of you, and thank you to all of our badass, incredible, inspiring movement leaders for the ongoing work that you do, for all that you carry, for your hearts, your strength, your determination, and for so generously sharing your time, perspectives, stories, songs, and knowledge with us tonight. We pray with you and for you, and we stand with you in love and solidarity. And to all of you joining us on this call, thank you for showing up with humility, intention, and care. We hope tonight's program is just the beginning of your work towards protecting the sacred, the treaties, our waters, our plants and animals, our children, each other, our communities, and this land that we call home. I'd like to close with a short reading called All Rivers Run to the Sea by Reverend Kayla Rice. All rivers run to the sea. It starts with a drop, then a trickle, a burble, a rush of water, bubbling towards its destination, and finally the wide, endless sea. All rivers run to the sea. Today you brought water, poured it into a common bowl. Though our experiences have differed, these waters mingle, signifying our common humanity. Today you came and shared in the sacred community. May you depart this sacred space with your hearts filled with hope and determination and new beginnings. All rivers run to the sea. Again, thank you, miigwech, and I'll turn things over to Karen to extinguish our chalice.
We at MUUSJA are so honored and so grateful. Thank you all. Thank you, Katie and Shania, Anna Maria, everyone who spent so much time planning tonight, and all of our honored relatives who shared with us. We hope to strengthen this circle and to move forward together. We extinguish this chalice flame, but not our hope for the future. our courage in the face of challenge, or the care we give to the land, the water, and all our communities. Thank you. Miigwech. Gracias.